Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. When my wife and I bought our dream home in a nice suburban neighborhood a few years back, we thought we had found our perfect little slice of paradise. The house was spacious, the yard was big enough for our two dogs to run around, and the neighborhood seemed quiet and friendly. However, we quickly learned that looks can be deceiving. Shortly after moving in, we received a letter from the Homeowners Association welcoming us to the community. It outlined all their rules and regulations, things like our grass couldn't be over 4 inches, we couldn't park boats or RVs in our driveway, and so on. Annoying, but nothing too crazy. Then we noticed the Homeowner Association patrolling around in their little golf carts, scrutinizing everyone's property for violations. Still, we shrugged it off. The real trouble started when they began targeting our street specifically. You see, our house is on a private road just off the main subdivision. The road and the 4 houses on it were built by the original developer years before the rest of the community. We owned the street and were responsible for its maintenance and upkeep. Legally, it was not part of the official homeowner association. None of that mattered to the power-hungry homeowner association board members. They decided our road was an eyesore because it wasn't up to their standards. The fact that it wasn't under their jurisdiction didn't stop them from patrolling it constantly, fining us for supposed violations and demanding we make expensive upgrades. At first, we tried to reason with them. We showed them our property records proving the road was private. We pointed out their own bylaws that stated clearly our street wasn't part of their purview, but they didn't care. As far as they were concerned, our road was an embarrassment to the neighborhood and they were going to force us to comply, whether they had the authority or not. After months of harassment and threatening letters from the homeowner association, I'd had enough. If they wanted to play hardball, then game on. I came up with a plan for some good old-fashioned, malicious compliance. I went to the hardware store and bought several cans of the brightest, most obnoxious color of neon orange spray paint I could find. That weekend, I spent hours spray painting the entire length of the curb along our road that bright orange color. It was hideous, just what I was going for. The next day, I sat on my front porch with a beer in hand, watching the homeowner association clowns make their usual rounds in their golf cart. As expected, they came screeching to a halt when they reached my street. Their mouths hung open at the awful new paint job on the curbs. One of the board members jumped out and came stomping over to my driveway. "What is this?" he demanded. I feigned innocence. "What do you mean? This paint. Why did you paint the curbs orange?" I shrugged. "Couldn't help but notice you guys didn't seem to like the way our street looked. Kept bugging us to make improvements. So I figured a nice fresh coat of paint would spruce things up around here." "This is unacceptable. It's against regulations to have curb colors like this," he fumed. "Yeah, see, the thing is, this isn't your curb or your regulations," I said calmly. "This is my private property outside your jurisdiction. I can paint my curb any color I dang well please." His face turned beet red. He spluttered indignantly about getting lawyers involved before stomping back to his golf cart and peeling away. I smiled and waved as they left. In the following weeks, I waited to see if the homeowner association was dumb enough to take legal action against me. They weren't. Maybe they finally wised up and realized they didn't have a leg to stand on. Or maybe our horribly ugly painted curb was punishment enough. Either way, they stopped patrolling our street altogether after that little stunt. The neon orange curbs are still there today, a proud monument to my triumph over bureaucracy and red tape. Every time I pull into our neighborhood, I get a kick out of that glaring reminder that our road belongs to us, not the homeowner association. A little malicious compliance goes a long way. The next one is a pro-revenge story. My dad just shared a story about my late Uncle Dale, his lifelong friend and fellow engineer. So in his memory and in the spirit of the upcoming holidays, I present to you the tale of nepotism, engineering students, and Idina Menzel. Uncle Dale was a senior engineer at a small firm in the Midwestern USA and an engineering instructor at the local community college. He was also unofficially in charge of the office parties. To help offset the costs, he had a small tin box on a table outside of his office with a slot in it so anyone could donate money to the party fund. Everyone knew about it and was happy to donate. A month or so before the company's big Christmas party, Uncle Dale decided to check the box. Lo and behold, it was empty. Uncle Dale knew something was wrong because he had seen several colleagues putting money in the box. This could only mean one thing: someone was stealing from the party fund. At this moment, Brad, the owner's nephew and a fellow engineer, came around the corner, and something about the way Brad was looking at him made Uncle Dale suspicious. Brad didn't have a good reputation around the office, to say the least. He had a reputation for being pushy, obnoxious, rude, and just plain entitled. Unfortunately, he was not only the owner's beloved nephew, but knew how to skirt the rules so he wouldn't get fired. Uncle Dale decided to set a trap to catch the thief. Using his engineering skills, he set up a hidden rig using a doorbell camera right by the box. He then had a colleague loudly brag about how he contributed $100 to the party fund. Then he waited. He got a notification that the camera was recording and watched Brad open the empty box, scowl in disgust, and throw the box against the wall. Now you'd think this would end with Uncle Dale presenting the video evidence to his boss to get Brad fired, but oh no. As I mentioned in a previous post, if there's one thing engineers love, it's solving problems, and if it's engineering students, they'll make it an experience to remember. Uncle Dale then went to his engineering students. He offered them extra credit to come up with a rigged box that would make noise when opened. The more obnoxious the sound, the higher the bonus. 1 week later, they delivered their project and demonstrated how it worked. Pleased with the results, Uncle Dale awarded them the extra credit as promised. The next day, he set up the rigged box and proclaimed, "Well, isn't this nice? Someone donated $50 to the party fund." Then he went to his office and waited. The engineering students had rigged the box with one of those inserts from cards that play music when you open them. By popular vote, they had picked "Let It Go" from the Disney movie Frozen right around the time the song was beginning to become unpopular. They also managed to ensure that once opened, the box couldn't close unless you pressed a hidden side button, releasing the hinge so the song would continue to play. For extra fun, they made sure to angle the insert for maximum volume and secured it down with industrial-strength glue. Sure enough, everyone in the office heard Idina Menzel belting the hated song and Brad's frustrated grunts while trying to close the box. One of those attracted by the sound was Brad's uncle. Finally, Brad chucked the box at the wall, managing to put a good-sized dent in it. The uncle then summoned Brad to his office. 15 minutes later, Brad left with a cardboard box and cleared out his desk, along with a note in his file. "Do not rehire, do not recommend." So his engineering career was over. That Christmas, Uncle Dale had a little video prepared to show at the party. The doorbell camera had caught Brad's attempt to steal from the box, all to the tune of "Let It Go." The next one is a petty revenge story. Years ago, there was this guy I sometimes used to hang out with. I really liked him and would do anything for him. Unfortunately, the efforts weren't reciprocated. It was difficult to get a hold of him, as he would leave me on read and wouldn't answer my calls. Then, after a few days, he would reply back that he was very busy and tired because of work, and proceeded to start a conversation with me, but when I replied, he would just leave me on read again. It was truly infuriating, but what could I do? I really liked him and was acting like a fool. The last straw was when one day he invited me to go to the movies. I got ready and waited for him to pick me up at the appointed time. The time came, and he wasn't showing up. I waited and waited. I called him, and he didn't answer. I texted him, and he didn't see my message. A couple of hours later, he sent me a message apologizing, saying that he was so tired and didn't feel like going out. At this point, I was so done with him. I told him he could at least tell me he wasn't willing to go out and I wouldn't be waiting for him like a clown. Nowadays, the same guy chases me relentlessly. I'm no longer interested in him. He keeps double texting me, saying how much he regrets not giving me the value and love I deserved back then, that he realized I'm a wonderful woman who did so much for him, and that he would be willing to do anything for me, that he will always be there whenever I need something. I leave him on read. He keeps calling me, and I don't answer his calls. This feels good because now I hope he understands how I felt back then when I used to be ignored by him too. The next one is a malicious compliance story. So for context, this happened back in 2015-2016. I'm a single mom, 23 years old at the time, and only had a young son to tend to. I was waitressing at a restaurant that I will call East End for this story, which was in the heart of the rough area of our town, but a major success due to the support of our community and area-wide parties we were known for throwing. It even resulted in another restaurant being built on the West Coast. However, Behind the scenes, our best-known secret was that our checks would never clear, and cashing them anywhere was always an issue due to mismanagement of funds. They even put $0 on my W-2 form, even though I put back funds from each supposed check, which I think is illegal. Throughout this, I stayed faithful to them and worked hard almost daily, bringing my son with me due to a lack of childcare. I even worked an entire month from 9 a.m. to sometimes 3 a.m. I was eventually made the top waitress and got a $1.25 raise, which wasn't much in waitress pay, but still, every penny counted. But soon, the owner passed the company down to his son, and when his son took over, everything was okay until he hired 2 employees. I'll call them Tina, an older female, and Leah, an old schoolmate. So over time, I noticed that my boss's son started getting closer to them to a point where they were hanging out after work. Then one day, a meeting occurred where they both were named managers. Even though I had 2 years of seniority and top sales, and my job title and pay raise were both taken. As if that was not heartbreaking enough, my work ethic started getting picked apart by them, especially Tina, who would call me a table hog and not a team player, even though I brought in the most sales. So finally, the last straw came on an event night. I had worked the entire lunch rush that day and was asked to cover the late shift since they knew I knew how to work it. Tina decided to make me the register waitress, meaning I could only work the front bar and door and not take tables. "You made enough money for today," she said with a snark and walked off. Now my family happened to walk in and requested for me to host their table. There was a rule saying that if a certain worker was requested, that worker would take it. But my manager was upset by this because she had to work in my place at the front. By the end of the night, she pulled up the computer and the following conversation happens. "Tina, what did you do for this table?" Me, confused and angry. "Who is questioning my orders?" Tina, taken aback. "I was wanting to see if what you did for them was worth being suspended for a week. I had no choice but to work when, as a manager, I am supposed to just sit back and observe everything to make sure things go right." Me, "Excuse me? You know the rule." "But you know what? Whatever. Forget this." I stormed out in tears. The next day, I go in for my check when I notice on the schedule that I was only suspended for 6 days and scheduled to work on the 7th day for a huge party that was supposed to happen. Cue malicious compliance. I went directly to the boss and told him I thought I was suspended for 7 days, not 6, and had plans for that day, which I didn't, laughing my butt off. My boss saw this and pointed it out to Tina, who had no choice but to enforce my suspension. That night I drove by and the streets were packed. I honked the horn and waved. The staff told me that due to poor planning of the suspension of her best server and being short-staffed, she struggled to find coverage and was yelled at by the boss for her poor leadership, and she had to work it herself. I found a job that week and quit and told them that my 2 weeks' notice was when they would notice I wasn't coming back. The next one is an entitled people story. So I am homeless, no I don't drink, and no I don't do drugs. I'm trying to get a job, but finding employment when homeless is not an easy task, something I need to get out of the way. Every few days I take a trip to the library to charge my phone and batteries so I can keep my phone on and working. I typically spend 3-4 hours in a quiet corner of the library glued to the power outlet charging. Today, I had a cute, then frustrating interaction between a little kid and its parent. I walked through the sliding doors of the library and wandered around looking for an open chair near an outlet to sit and charge. I heard this little voice shout out in excitement and glee, "Santa!" and pitter-patters of little boots running over to me. Now I get it, I really do. A big, bearded man dressed in red with big black bags and an oversized backpack strapped over his shoulders. Any little kid would easily mistake me for the big jolly man. The kid stopped dead in front of me. She was clenching her fists tight, trembling in excitement. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old. She looked up at me. Her eyes opened wide and uttered the word, "Hi, Santa." That made me smile and I laughed. Her mother came running over, scooped her child up and said sorry to me, walked away, and told her kid that's not Santa. The entire interaction put a smile on my face. But here's where it went downhill. I found an open seat and plugged in to charge and do my thing. The little kid and her parent were on the other side of the library, but the kid was still brimming with excitement. I could see her head poke out of the bookshelf, staring at me every so often. That went on for about half an hour. until I guess the mother couldn't handle her child anymore, and she came over to me. She asked me to leave and find a different spot because I am distracting her daughter. I said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but this is the only open space with an outlet. I need to charge my stuff." She very sarcastically said, "Oh, why's that?" I replied, "Because I don't have one. I am homeless." I thought that was the end of it because her face went red and she walked away. But no, she came back. She went up to the front desk to ask if there are any outlets outside and if it's okay for me to use them. Seriously, she said that the library is okay with me using the outlet outside to charge so I can go out there. I asked her, "So you don't want me in the library, a public institution, to charge? You would rather me sit outside in the cold just because your kid thinks I'm Santa? Really, that's it?" I looked at her and said, "Well, ho ho ho, Merry Christmas to you. I'm going to stay right here until my batteries are charged." The lady went to the front desk, and I listened in because I figured I'm screwed. I'm getting kicked out. She asked them to tell me to leave. They said they can't unless I'm intentionally making a disturbance, being violent or threatening. I have been here before. I keep to myself and don't bother anyone. So yeah, I was there for 4 hours. I didn't move or get kicked out. My things are charged and good for the next few days. Honestly, not the worst interaction I have ever experienced. At least she was somewhat polite. The next one is an entitled parent story. I'm 16 and I'm a huge Sonic fan. I have mental health problems such as depression and suicidal thoughts, but Sonic has always put a smile on my face. This happened back in April of 2020. In the UK, COVID really hit around late March, and many people I knew were infected. The only good thing that year was I got to see the Sonic movie twice before COVID shut down cinemas. So I bought a Sonic face mask from the Sega shop online in the UK, and I got a lot of praise telling me how cool it was. One person didn't like the fact that I had it. I went out one day because I was on a small diet and I fancied some zero sugar pink lemonade, so I went to Asda. As I'm trying to find it, I hear a little kid, "Wow, that's so cool, I love your mask." I look down and see a 7-year-old girl and I smile under the mask, which was pointless because she couldn't see it. Yeah, I know, right? It's awesome. You can get it for £10, mostly £8, but £2 for delivery, which that £2 actually goes to a charity that makes face masks. Cool, alright, see ya, gotta go fast. And the little girl runs back to her mother, making me super happy that she said those words, "Gotta go fast anyway." I continue my shopping. Only a minute later I hear a loud ahem, and I ignore it thinking someone was trying to get an employee's attention until I felt a strong hand on my shoulder making me turn quite violently. "You! I've been trying to ask you something for 3 minutes, you R-word, I hate hearing it." I stood in shock because another thing to mention, I hate being forcefully moved by strangers. If they simply tapped my shoulder, I wouldn't have minded, but nope, this crazy a-hole had to spin me forcefully. "My daughter wants your mask, give." She put out her hand as if she was expecting me to give it to her, so I reply, "I'm sorry, but this is my mask. I bought it with my own money, I can't just—" "Oh, shut up, you ducking gay fag," she called me this cause of my pink hair. And I think she assumed I was gay, which I'm not, BTW. I see the sweet little girl telling her mother, "Mommy, I don't want his mask. I want one that is his, on a website he got the mask from." Then the mother goes, "I'm not paying £10 for a stupid mask." Me being the smartass I am, I went, "But you're paying about £100 on 9 bottles of wine?" I saw her trolley and saw it nearly full of alcohol. This made her angrier, and she even tried to punch me because I looked older and was freakishly tall. But the thing is, I quit judo about 5 years ago and have played football for 3, so I have gotten some kind of self-defense skill, so before she could punch me, I kid you not, I caught her fist and her being stupid, I pulled down her arm while she tried to pull it up, so I smirked and let go, which caused her to punch herself in the face like a moron. She fell backwards and knocked into her trolley. "Help! Assaulted, assaulted! I've just been sexually assaulted, help!" An employee came over to see and ask what was going on, but I couldn't get a word in because the lady was screaming about how I assaulted her and was trying to assaulted her little girl. The employee didn't even try to listen to my side as he immediately grabbed his manager. The police were called and I was about to be arrested because there was no other witnesses or a camera at the aisle we were at, but my savior stepped up, and you know who it was? It was the little girl. "Excuse me, police me?" She tugged one of the policemen's pants and he looked down at her. "That man isn't bad, it was Mommy." She explained the best she could, and it was enough for them to piece together that the mother tried to assault me and I self-defended myself. She was arrested for assault, and another charge I don't remember. But here is the best part. Apparently, she wasn't even allowed to see her daughter because she had violent drunken behavior problems and that she kidnapped her daughter from school and went to get alcohol. Needless to say, she's in jail IDK how long, but it was worth it seeing her screaming at me when she saw me leave the ASDA whilst she was sitting in the back seat of a police car. Before I left, the employee apologized to me, but I told him how unbelievably rude he was about how he wasn't interested to hear my side of the story as it was scary and terrifying to me. The manager let me go home with a 6-pack of zero sugar pink lemonade. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.